I'm getting or the health, I make sure that I do as I am told, and also in terms of getting support from family or also giving support, I should be giving that to other people around me.
Wonderful. And one thing that I want us to talk about, I like how you were able to unpack what it means to you. And then I wondered if also other young people do understand what we mean when we say rights. Do they really know their rights? What are our rights to health?
Okay, so we just know like the general term that I have a right to health and all that. But when it comes to now going into the actual services, a lot of us don't know our rights, not just people living with HIV, but even just in healthcare, that what I have a right to this health. Am I getting that in healthcare? And it's because of lack of education, and also that we don't really go into health issues that much, as also the service health service providers, that do we empower our patients enough to say that when this happens, this is the action that you should be taking. If you come to a healthcare facility and you're asking for help, if you don't get it, this is what you're supposed to do. Or maybe, for example, maybe you test positive and now you don't have, you should be starting treatment, and then you're told that no, with the current medication that we have, it's not for you because you have drug resistance and all that. Now, as a person living with HIV, you don't know your in terms of your rights, that okay, I have a right to health, but then what options do I have when I'm told that I have resistance to other medications? Can I go further and say that isn't there any other option for me, or what is it that that I can do? So those are the kind of gaps that are there when it comes to empowering people, or people knowing about their rights when it comes to accessing the healthcare services, and also just asking, because sometimes in healthcare services they don't even tell us about some of the services that are there, and it is your right to know. For example, when it comes to reproductive health, some doctors don't tell you as a young person living with HIV, for example, yeah. You are in the childbearing age. Some doctors, or for me, for example, my doctors have been foreigners for the past 7 years since I moved to Gaborone. And a lot of them, the question that they ask is that, oh, we don't have, like, I know that back then we used to have what is called like education talks in the morning, where they do teach us about maybe sexual reproductive health with our parents and all that, but nowadays it's not there. So what they do is that when a doctor just asks you, are you sexually active? And when you say no, they don't go any further to teach you about the options that are there for you as a young person living with HIV, that how do you protect your partner? So these are the kind of gaps that are there. So it means that as a young person living with HIV, if I don't know my right, I'm not going to talk to my doctor about my sexual reproductive health and my rights, to know the options that are there, and also to prepare, to empower me to prepare for when I now want to have babies.
Wonderful. I think then from what you said, it means that there still is a lot that needs to be done, and I believe the right people will take the right actions. Right now, I want us to watch a documentary here that we'll talk to after.
This World AIDS Day, we stand together as one Botswana, one people, united in our commitment to end the HIV pandemic and ensure access to care and treatment for all.
Botswana has made significant strides with relation to fighting new HIV infections. We have made significant gains, and our duty now is to work on sustaining these. However, even with these great gains, we do encounter that we are getting newer infections, especially in the young population, and that is one area of concern.
Today, Botswana stands as a beacon of hope. It has surpassed the UN's ambitious 95-95-95 targets.
Botswana stands as a shining example that epidemic control is not just a goal, but as possible. With our firm collaboration and commitment, we can say we are at the edge of achieving epidemic control. So this is reflected by surpassing the UN AIDS targets. These are the targets that were set drastically to reduce the impact of HIV, as well as eliminating AIDS as a public health threat. So the targets are called UN AIDS 95, 95, 95 targets. These are 3 targets. The targets were set to ensure that at least 95%, the first 95, is at least first 95% of people living with HIV, they should know their HIV status. And then the second 95, it talks to those who know their status. They should be on sustained antiretroviral therapy or ARV. And then the last 95 talks to 95% of those who are on sustained antiretroviral therapy. They should achieve viral suppression.
Botswana has become the 3rd country to surpass the joint United Nations program on HIV/AIDS 95, 95, 95 targets, with an estimated 95.1% of people living with HIV reported aware of their HIV status, 98% on antiretroviral therapy, and 97.9% virally suppressed, as revealed in the 5th Botswana AIDS Impact Survey, Bias 5, in the 2021 report. Botswana is one of the first high-burden countries to be globally recognized by the World Health Organization for the successful efforts in prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV, and received a Silver Tier Award in 2021. Additionally, Botswana has introduced a treat-all strategy, which offers antiretroviral treatment to all HIV-positive individuals despite their CD4 count.
Despite the progress, new infections persist. Young people, especially girls and women, are still at risk. Stigma and discrimination, though diminished, still cast a shadow. And reaching those in remote areas remains a challenge.
We still see some challenges that persist. We see young women aged 15 to 24 facing significant vulnerability. They account for 27% of new infections. That is over a quarter, while comprising just 9% of the total population. I want to put an emphasis on this one. Young women aged 15 to 24, they account for 27% of new infections, while comprising only 9% of the total population in our country. This makes them 3 times more likely to acquire HIV when you compare to the adolescent boys and young men. So they are more exposed to than the young men. And then also we have realized, or we have found, that older men aged 25 to 49, they contribute nearly a third of new infection as well. But when you compare the ages, it's 15 to 24 being more vulnerable and having high infections, comparing to the men also by the older age 25 to 49. We can see a link on whole. There is that possibility of non-condom use, or maybe young people not having limited power to negotiate safer sex, or issue of intergenerational relations. So when you are dating somebody older, it's not easy for you to negotiate safer sex. So that's one of the major challenges. And of course, issues of stigma, and of course issues of poverty. Those are the ones that can also lead us to these gaps.
Our government is working on an economy that works for all. This is so that women and girls are not put at a disadvantage that will make them vulnerable to HIV infection because of their economic status. We will also increase public education on protective measures against HIV.
Through education, awareness, and programs that empower vulnerable populations, Botswana is building a future where every citizen's rights are respected and protected.
And how we intend to deal with, for example, one is to roll out some educational campaigns, some behavioral change campaigns to try and conscientize the young on how to prevent or to protect themselves from getting HIV/AIDS. It could be delaying sexual abuse or using consistent condom use or abstaining, right? So we have made gains and we do have some challenges, but we also want to emphasize how we treat people who have HIV or people who have AIDS, to say they are no lesser because they have HIV. They still deserve to be treated with dignity, and we should not try to diminish them because they have AIDS. It doesn't mean they are lesser because of that. So we've made significant strides, but we also have some challenges that we're working on, and we believe together, if we employ all these techniques, we are well set to ending HIV by 2030.
This World AIDS Day, we celebrate the incredible journey of the people of Botswana and reaffirm our shared commitment to ending the HIV pandemic once and for all.
My health, my right. To me, it's a powerful reminder that health is a fundamental human right. It emphasizes on the importance that there's need for us to ensure that everyone, that is regardless of their gender, regardless of their age, regardless of their socioeconomic status, they need to have access to life-saving HIV prevention care and treatment without stigma and discrimination. So as a country, we have achieved a lot, but we just need to put more, to renew our strategies again, to renew our strategies and prioritize issues of equity and community-led responses, so that you can truly take the right path and towards achieving AIDS-free generation by 2030.
As the Ministry of Health, we believe that people living with HIV should have access to all medications they need. They should have access to medical personnel and also be treated with dignity without any stigma and discrimination on account of their HIV status. So that's what we believe. They deserve all the dignity that we all deserve.
Wonderful. I think there's a lot that we actually picked from the just ended clip. And we are aware that we do have the 95 target by 2030, where we are actually working and aiming towards combating, HIV and AIDS. But there's still something that I picked, in terms of the prevalence, we still experience a high rise of new infections when it comes to, girls and women. What could be the cause? Why are we constantly experiencing a rise, in new infections when it comes to young girls and women?
Yes, thank you. So the age group 15 to 24, you find that from 15 to 19, those are students, school going students. And because of this, and even those that are just over 20, you find that some of them come from homes where they don't have, when it comes to the enough money to sustain them. So they go and opt for older men who now, because now they have the wallet, the power to buy them into sexual activities, they can't negotiate like using protection. So because of that, these are the things that are contributing to the high new infections. And also you find that the younger ones, those that are still going to school, our age of consent for you to test for HIV in Botswana is 16. You're able to go and test without a parent. But those that are less than that, those that are 15, for example, maybe they're in activity or that are in situations where they're maybe abused at home and they cannot tell their parents as to why they want to test. They can't go for testing. And through this, because now they're engaging with older men in sex, and then now maybe they have their age mates, now you find that there's going to be reinfections because of that. And also, we find that because now even in terms of sex education in schools, it's not that much, and also the curriculum doesn't talk much into it. So these are the gaps that are there when it comes to information, getting information to students, and also that we know that sometimes the information is limited because now we're saying that these kids that are too young, those that are below 18, that are too young, and we're saying that they're not engaging in sexual activities. But these are the very this is the very age group that is engaging in sexual activities. And even when it comes to like having protection in schools, like condoms, we're saying that we don't want to have that because the basis of that is that people are saying harabadi condom muscle, we're going to be encouraging these students to indulge in sexual activities. And I think that it's because we're in denial so much, but we still see a lot of young girls getting pregnant, but yet we're saying that we don't want to provide this sex education in schools or even the protection for that. So these are some of the things that are contributing to the high U infections in our country.
And I think from what you said is the intergenerational relationships, where there is just a huge gap in terms of age, and clearly there won't be, a balance in terms of power. The younger one would always be suppressed. Could we say that maybe the other thing could be that then the little girls become voiceless? They can't negotiate, a proper or safe sex, because of the power of the man.
And also, you find that some of these men, because most of them they have families, and you find that a lot of them actually engage not just with these young girls but with other women. So they most of the time they have HIV, and then now they infect these young girls, and this is how now these reinfection, because now this girl next to someone else, and they indulge, and they know there are different strains, and then now you have these new infections that are there in our country. So this is how it happens. And also that I think also, like I'm saying that when it comes to yes, with our country, maybe we should now look into prevention. How do we provide prevention? Yes, we've been talking about PrEP, we're having oral PrEP, but you find that PrEP, because you have to take it every day. Those that are taking are over 18, because you find that they're not willing to sort of like commit to PrEP every day. So in the end, they end up not even enrolling for PrEP, or also just and then they end up PrEP. So these are the things that contribute to that. So some of the solutions that can be there is that high new infections. So what options do we have? PrEP, because of the HIV advancements and research, that there for PrEP. Every 2 months, every 6 months, the cabotography, and also with the lenacapavir that is available. But now it's not there in Botswana. 2022, our ministry talked about how they're going to start enroll the injectable ARV for PrEP, because it's very expensive in 2023, but we haven't seen that happening. So we need to look into these options. So why don't we now source funds to buy every 2 months for prevention, or every 6 months? So then through this, we're able to curb this issue, high new infections in adolescent girls and young women.
I think you raised a very important point when you spoke about PrEP, because as it stands, we are struggling, especially like you said. One thing that I know young people like saying is, but I think the point that they are missing there is that you're actually preventing, actually getting HIV by saying that I know that then I'll be protected and I won't be infected. It's not like you have to live with it the rest of your life. There's a plan that you can live with. When you know you want to conceive, or when you know the status of your partner, then how to protect yourself. So I think maybe there still is a greater need to engage the young people, especially communities especially, and educate them on PrEP. But now I want us to talk about healthcare related services for the community. Do we think there is enough?
Okay, when it comes to services, we've been doing, but we have these services, but sometimes or there's some areas around Botswana where we have these services, but they're not there. They don't have access to the services on it. That limit, and also the minister earlier on talked about people living with HIV should be having the access to these different services, but you find that staying with that they but how you don't have those, or young girls don't have access to this. So these are the contributing aspects that there is no, when it comes to having equity in our country, it's not there. Whereas some areas they have more than others, and these are things that we need to look into when it comes to budgeting and having access for everyone.
So inclusivity is very important. Let's include everyone and make sure that service provision is actually availed for everyone.
Yes, and also I think, having or involving the community. Like, for example, like by VDC, how can you empower them to be part of this movement, or to also go around talking to the community about PrEP, basically PrEP, and how do you take it, how do you enroll it, and just the process. So we need to maximize on our communities that are there around the country.
Now that we spoke about a shortage of services in other areas, what then does it mean for us? What can we say about the policies that are there? Can we say that they are doing enough in terms of protecting the rights of people living with HIV and AIDS? Or do we think there is a need to try alter them, to try revise them, to ensure that there is clear protection for people living with HIV and AIDS?
Okay, so in Botswana, so we know that Hosimonse the ARV in 2002, when it was free ARVs for all. So those are some of the policies that we appreciate that have been happening over the years. And then happy those free ARVs, no what the Botswana hell. So that was one policy. But in 2019, through advocacy, but still then we have those and we engage with them, and because now some of them are living with HIV, so ARV they're going to be reinfecting us, or yes, and then we're not going to go out fighting losing battles. So we need to be inclusive of them, and through advocacy we saw that by PEPFA, they managed to say that, okay, no, we will provide the funds. They're going to buy ARVs and provide ARVs for the immigrants. So currently in Botswana, everyone, whether all Botswana or Botswana, they're able to access the ARV. So these are some of the policies that are there that have been doing so well. And these are the things that contribute to how much we've been doing well. So the 90 strategies, Botswana, it surpassed that. 98, 95, 98, 98. Botswana, 98% of them, they know their HIV status. But I know how to status, 95% know that they're HIV positive, and then of those 98 treatment day, and of those 98% of those that are undetectable. So because of this free access to everyone, both immigrants and policies, they've helped a lot when it comes to us fighting HIV and us doing well as compared to other countries. But then there are also some policies sometimes it's sort of like Haridis or DPT, or because we don't talk much about it, or people, only a few have that sort of privilege to go and see that I have a right to this, but finally this barrier that is preventing me from getting this. For example, when we're talking about the policies that when you want to go into military, you find that because you are HIV positive, how could I more? And back then the justification in Lahore, because when HIV started, your immune system was very weak, so you couldn't do much. But over the years, Romania advancement, and also because of the commitment that you had to go for regular checkups, which made sense back then. How do we about 2005, 6? What it made sense, you can't go into Boswale because and you have to go for regular checkups. But over the years, there was advancement of treatment. For example, like 7 tablets now when you change over the years and then it changed to 1 pill right now the 1 pill maybe however time that you chose. And now what we're saying is that because now there's been advancement of treatment, why don't we change the policies so it's going into the military and deploying people living with HIV to say that you are going to deploy them because now we're not and also they can be given more. And also alternatively, why don't we also work with other countries and then maybe just have a policy to say that masolara living with HIV provide every 6 months for treatment, and that is just going to be a small population. Then there are policies that we can move with when it comes to our HIV response as a country, Botswana. And also we should benchmark in other countries when it comes to this. So when the US in 2010, Bonaba lifted this policy where people living with HIV cannot go or cannot be recruited and deployed in the military, but by because of the advancement of treatment, countries like the UK and South Africa, are you undetectable in all these things, and then they're able to hire you. But Botswana, you are not. People living with HIV are not. And when you ask, like last year I had an opportunity to ask in HR, the fair, and what he said was that no, we hire everyone, we don't discriminate and all that, but the reality is that on the ground that's not the reality. Happening. We are discriminated, and our rights to work just because we're living with HIV, but on the advancement of treatment. So they should our ministry should look into some of these policies by the change, remove a lead Lorana, and also make sure that we are taking the right path as a country. And also young policy scholarshiping, you find that people living with HIV by exclude you to get international scholarships. For example, they didn't see or in just clearly you should getting 48 points, you should be doing this and this, and then at the very bottom HIV negative. That is discriminated. That is taking away my right to education as a young person living with HIV. I am a smart person. I can also compete to negative, and I can even do better than that. But because I'm living with HIV, that access to the right to education or opportunities outside the country to advance my country, I cannot get that. So these are the policies. Obviously, scholarship because I'm a hassle, but Botswana should have a voice to say that we relate with country X. So through our international relations office, we want to now talk to you guys to say that we've seen what treatment the advances treatment 6 months to come and study the after 6 months to do a refill, or even say that we are going to have exceptions to say that undetectable they can be given the scholarship to go and study outside, and then maybe every 6 months. So these are the policies that would like to see and also when it comes to international relations, other countries visa that they don't give people living with HIV the visa. So already it's excluding me to going into certain countries, and it's limiting me as a person living with HIV when it comes to seeking opportunities, growth, education. So also I think as countries we need to work together, especially like more diplomacy, like how do we make the rights and access to services and personal development for people living with HIV in such a way that it's equal. We don't discriminate or choose this over this kind of person. So those are some of the policies that I would like to see change. Because now we're talking about we are in a new regime. These are the policies that we want to see change, because over the years we've had only just the same ruling party for 58 years. Maybe they just overlooked and say that provide ARV, and they overlooked some of these small policies that are taking away a lot of our rights. But I have a right to work, but I can't work in certain industries because I'm living with HIV.
Well said. So as we are here talking, there is a commemoration ongoing at Tokweng Mafitla Khosi Primary School grounds, and we will be joining them shortly. So Khoneana, just stay with us as we continue with our discussion. You said a lot, Mesa Kabo, and as you're saying all these, I was wondering then what role do you think advocacy can play in all this? You spoke about now, being in a new regime and all that. Shouldn't this be an opportunity now to advocate for such in ensuring that there is now change for the people living with HIV and AIDS?
Yes, so advocacy it plays a very important role when it comes to changing these policies or amending them. Like we saw that through advocacy, like when we started got free ARV for only Botswana, through advocacy, we also have our friends, our family, people that we're interacting with. So why don't we provide these free ARVs? And because of that advocacy, I would want to CSO, different people going and advocating for these policy changes. That change to say that, okay, no, we're going to be providing these free ARVs through advocacy, the community, and also that when it comes to advocacy, it's important in policy change because there are effects. This is exactly what is happening, and also community is important. Advocacy when it comes to when you go into the academia side of things, the researchers in the idea, those are the researchers that are driving policy changes in Botswana. For example, like I did a study when I was doing my undergraduate, and I was supervised by Dr. Kailo, Dr. Simanele, Dr. Choga from the Botswana Harvard Health Partnerships, and we were looking into a new drug. In 2019, approval. So if we could have this drug introduced in Botswana, is it going to work for patients by now that have been taking the ARV for a very long time, over similar the ARV, and through this drug doravirine, but they were diagnosed. I got efavirenz and nevirapine. People who have been taking these nevirapine or efavirenz or nevirapine, this medication or this tablet because drug resistance, but test for HIV high similarly ARV. This medication is going to work well for them for the first time. So then through that research, submitting this to Ministry of Health and doing continuous research, the policy changed now in last year 2023. Ministry of Health, because of this researches and also just learning from other countries, doravirine was implemented in the HIV clinical care Botswana, and for the first time yet. So these are the treatment naive patients, because this drug less drug resistance, then it means that maybe BP, it will not interfere like dipilisi will never repeat. So when they interfere with and also with the side effects, when it has less side effects than this 2002 for people that have been living with HIV. So that is why it's an advantage. And also the doravirine, it works better both bana le bahol, unless efavirenz so then it becomes to how this one is for both bana le bahol, but ERV this particular one and baholo. So through these researches we can see that advocacy drives policy changes in our country through the research, evidence-based research advocacy, just advocacy to say that like social wise, why don't we help them in 1, 2, 3? So that is why advocacy is very important when it comes to pushing policy changes and making sure that we have policies and laws that are inclusive of everyone and helping us to fight or to have a better HIV response.
Now, as we're talking about, policy changes and all that, the most important thing also to ensure that, we bridge all the gaps is community education, and empowerment. Do you think that we are doing enough in terms of, educating and informing our community when it comes to this issue regarding HIV/AIDS?
Okay, so when it comes to community, we know that for the longest of time, we've been talking about HIV, you know, for like almost 21, 22 years, we work at HIV, and some people even feel that we work at HIV, you know, now we feel like we are tired. It's time for us to stop talking about it, but we can't stop because in a change, and we're also having new infections, you know, we're having high new infections. That's why we need to talk about it. And also that how do we support HIV and now they're aging with HIV. So we're going now into a term, aging with HIV. How do we involve community in this? Like me, I started 7 years, about to be 30. I'm very close to 30. So it means that Asia with HIV, how do we build community to support me in terms of me getting older, drinking my ARVs, and also now going into having kids in the future? Like how do we have that community support? So communities can also just volunteer in organizations in the HIV response. And in terms of volunteering, look into services, you know, when you like, maybe when you're into media stuff or yes, designing content and all that. Help when it comes to now see this type of content. This is how we can get to them. Maybe we're not talking about PrEP, that we need to do some dances on TikTok, or we need to do these particular trends to get to the information. They're not going to read them. So those are the kind of ways that community can be involved, and also volunteering and going into like churches and talking to them about what is happening, and research, and just updating them.
And so from what you said, the most important thing is changing the approach. We are moving with time.
Yes.
Things have changed. So it's for us to ensure that the strategies are actually relevant for the now, you know, community, so that we ensure that there is learning and then there is change. Now, as you're talking, one thing that I know remains a challenge, and we're not really talking much about it like we used to, is the issue of stigma and discrimination. I want us to talk about that, because though we talk about stigma, we want to talk about the second party, which is the community. But there is also self-stigma. So let's break it down so that we understand why are we still struggling with it, and what do you think can be done?
Okay, so when it comes to self-stigma, it mainly happens because of how the community reacts, or how we've seen people react to living with HIV over the years. So these are the contributing.
Let me just stop you there for a minute. Just like I have said, we have a commemoration actually going on at Tokweng Mafihla Khosi Primary School grounds. So right now, the Vice President of the Republic of Botswana is arriving, and he's actually the one who's going to be officiating the event. So let us see him as he arrives. So let us continue. You're actually saying something right there, so I would like for you to continue with what you're saying. We're talking on stigma and discrimination.
Yes, on self-stigma, like I said, that one of the contributing factors is how we perceive or what we see in the community. But most of the time you find that is how we've, maybe we're now in an era where it was still new, and then you are now newly diagnosed, or you still think, because I'm living with HIV, I'm going to be getting the same response as back then. And because of that, with when a person is living with HIV, now to go to the clinics because they feel like no person X go clinic or and I know you, and we reach this clinic, people who are living with HIV. I end up even not getting into that clinic, or and then I end up not getting these services. And this is the self-stigma that is there. And you find that this is also because now people think that they're not worthy of maybe living life because now they're HIV positive, or they're not worthy to be loved. There's just lack of self-worthy, and that leads to your self-stigma. And now, with self-stigma, like how can we do better, or how can we combat that, is that there are a lot of the support group around for people living with HIV or children living with HIV. Things like teen club, like Santabalele, Beila Barana, the teen club for teenagers who are living with HIV. And then they also have like for the older ones to say that we're going to be meeting every month, and we're going to be empowering you on different topics. And I know that also last year the UNICEF funded a project that is implemented by Santabale to established the first ever Botswana network of young people living with HIV. So this is like an online network. WhatsApp. So I'm one of the peer leaders, and I have over 50 young people from across Botswana that are living with HIV. And on a regular basis, we have meetings and barakala di airtime through funding, barakala di airtime so that they're able to subscribe. We're leading meetings or talking about issues that affect them. They're the ones that provide the topics to say that mina rabata ho bua ka PMTCT or rabata ho bua ka relationships and HIV, and then through that we discuss these topics on a monthly basis to empower them, hear from them, their experiences, and I just have peer-to-peer support. And we've seen that it has so much impact, but the impact that it has, and how people have accepted that status, and even to just share with us you've helped me a lot when it comes to accept or my partner about living with HIV. And even because now we are young, a lot of these young people they were born with HIV 2000 and 2004, so it's not like they had an option to live, so they find it very hard to accept they're living with HIV. And now they're at a point where and there's so much fear to say that I'm going to infect my child living with HIV. And even post negative, there's that fear I might infect them. But even though we know that there's treatment that is working, so through these peer-to-peer support groups, we're able to talk about treatment. They share their experiences. Me, how I went through that. I was in that space. I'm going to infect my child. I'm living with HIV, and also just give me tips on how to go about living with HIV and protecting my child as well as my loved ones. So through these support groups, we're able to fight stigma or self-stigma and empower young people living with HIV beyond just giving up and saying that they're just going to die, or because ARV.
And talking about that, I wanted to talk about the issue of art hirings. What's your experience when it comes to that? Are we doing better now as a country? There was a time when we had a lot of people, quitting on the way, defaulting, not taking their treatment. You understand? How is the situation currently, especially that you're running these clubs, you are working with the communities? How is the situation right now?
Yes, in terms of comparing it to back then, 2004, and now there's a huge difference. I think because the people were just newly diagnosed, and when it comes to information, and we literally saw people lying in their deathbeds because of AIDS. And because of that, but because of education, every day drug resistance to the point where because no has to because virus this is how it can fight this. So because of that education, and also by now they're newly diagnosed, you find that a young person who's 23 is newly diagnosed. However, part of these networks that we're able to talk to them, empower them, and just share our experiences, because I find that storytelling and just sharing this is how I've lived my life living with HIV. These are the challenges they face it, and this is how I managed to go about challenging. Yeah, maybe I was in boarding school. How did I go about boarding school? I'm living with HIV. How did I make sure that every day? So these are the realities that are there for young people. For students, by now they're living with HIV, and through education, we're able to give them tips on how they should be able to continue drinking their medication along the way, and in relationships, because we find that it's difficult for you to share with your partner who you are living with HIV. So or how do you know you are with them for like a week? We empower them on how to go about, and also just finding out or disclosing your HIV status to your partner. So through these support groups, this is how adherence is and also like I said, so that on its own was a lot, and it's one of the things that contributed but no, this is too much, but because now it also contribute. So HIV treatment advancement is also contributing to good adherence. So you can choose for a comfortable maybe you are in a relationship, maybe that is when your partner is there and haven't disclosed. So the best is to drink in the morning or when they are not there. And through these treatment advancements, the ARV is a huge contributor to good adherence, in not just in our country but worldwide also.
Okay. All right. So what I want us to talk about now is you spoke about, some of the things that can actually affect adherence. I want us to talk about, disclosing, one's status. When is the right time to disclose your HIV status to your partner or your loved ones?
Okay, so that one is it's hard to say there's like a right time, like how long. So when you've accepted your status, or also when you see that you need support, because I also believe that one of the contributing factors support, the family support, friends, or even your partner who support now. So that's the kind of support that is there and is important when it comes to living and disclosing your status. So you need to accept yourself first.
All right. I want us now to cross over to Dokweng and see what is happening there. I realize that the commemoration is actually underway.
O re thuse o re fe botlhale Ramasedi a poloko le tsebe ya go utlwa Ramasedi a poloko ha o re laela Jehova ra gore re tshwantse re direng Jehova ra gore re tle re khone ntate kgosi ya kgosi gore re henye mabayo Jehova o tlhasetseng tšhaba ga go Ramasedi a poloko me ke nela Jehova ra le hatsi la Botswana ra mo seatleng sa gago ntate kgosi ya kgosi o re thuse Ramasedi a poloko re tle re neelwe ke pula Ramasedi a poloko ra gore bana ba gago ba tle ba bone se se jiwang bana ba gago ba tle ba bone se se nwang tate kgosi ya kgosi gore le phulo ra le one itle emele Ramasedi a poloko gore diruiwa tsa bone ra di tle di bone tse ka se jang tate kgosi ya kgosi ke nela ra le boeteledi pele jwa le hatsi le Ramasedi a poloko o sa le Jehova ra o itshupile bogologolo Ramasedi a poloko re bone ha nako bana ba Israel ba ne ba tswa mo Egipto ra wa dirisa bo Moshe Ramasedi a poloko wa tsamaya le bone go itlhela Moshe ra a go tlogela bo Joshua le bone ba tswela hela jalo ntate kgosi ya kgosi mme wa itshupa ra mo mosipileng wa bone Ramasedi a poloko ga nna ra le liru Jehova le ne le ba thusa ntate kgosi ya kgosi gore go nne le moriti Ramasedi a poloko ra bona go nna le lesedi bosigo Ramasedi a poloko mme tswela Jehova ra o ntse o dira jalo ra le ba eteledi pele ba rona ntate kgosi ya kgosi wena Jehova ra o re lo kopa ntla mfasa sikopa Ramasedi a poloko ra itse ra a o santse tlo go dira tse di kholo Jehova ntate kgosi ya kgosi mme tse tsotle ra re di solohetse ka Jesu Kristo wa Nazareta amen.
Ele thapelo re ne re hiwa ke Pastor Sef Boane.
Thank you, Pastor Boane. May we kindly take our seats.
Tsile kana tiro e gore e simolole me mo lena no go supa ha go tla latela molaodi wa kgaolo re mo ke tselisetse ke eno e leng gore o tshwantse go gore a tle go bolela baeng ba leng gore ba teng mo tirong e ka kwano retsi o tshwantse gore ga kologolwe o itse gore tota hela mo lehatsheng la rona mo Botswana mogare o wa HIV gore o lemosege kana o lemogilwe ka ngwaga ole wa 1985 ko one nako e leng gore o ne ga tshwarwa motho wa ntlha ka one mme o tswenyana gone kwa dingwageng tseo go tswenyana kwa dingwageng tseo re go ne ga tsewa tshwetso ya gore bolwetsi jo bo lwantshiwe tshwetso ye e tsweletse hela ya lontse ya dirwa le mo nakong ya gompieno jaaka re setse re le ha Mafika Kgosi mo lebale la Mafika Kgosi Primary School e ntse e tsweletse bolwetsi jo kana mogare wo bontse bo a lwantshiwa sa le ka bosimololo hela nako ya go dirwa
o setse bo lemogilwe mme ano nna ba gaetsho ke bidiwa Shelley Tsheko. I'll be one of the directors of the proceedings of today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
o ka re ke yo tsileng go itsise baeng mme wa supa jalo gore ke ene yo e leng gore ke motsamaisa tiro mme go tloga ha introduction of guests kampo yo tla batsile go itsise baeng ke re mo ke tsilisetedi yo e leng molaodi mme welcome remarks ya go dirwa jalo ke kgosikgolo ya batlokwa Kgosipuso Gaborone Kgosipuso Gaborone ke ene a tla amogelang mo motseng wa Tlokweng mme re utlwe molaetsa gape ka Phodiso Modiro ile tota ile pina ka Phodiso Modirwa re tla re sutela jalo re mo ketsi lesetedi ile the district commissioner.
Your Honor, the Vice President, Cabinet Ministers here present, Member of Parliament, Mongame Khosi ya Batokwa le Mohumagadi le Mararahano, Batutegi ma-councilora, members of the diplomatic corps, senior government officials, heads of international organizations, our champions in HIV response, civil society, pastors, archbishops, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, ke dumedisa ka pula. Pula. Ke ema ha me go lebega ke ta dirisa teme tse pedi. Sekgwale Setswana to avoid leaving others behind. Mehela ke tlhalose gore thomo ya me ke go itsisi subi sa rona sa tota le baeng ba tota ba bahano me motsamaisa tiro nteta ke semolehela ka go itsisi subi sa rona sa tota e leng mothusa tautona wa lehatshe la Botswana gape le mo parlamente o tlotlegang wa Gaborone Bonington South mototegi NDABA GAOLATHE. Ne ke lemoge gape ha notona mo lephateng la botsogo e leng Dr. Stephen Modise. Ke lemoge tona mo Ministry wa Youth and Gender Affairs e le tona Lesego Chombo. Ke le mogetona tota yo leng gore tiro e ke ena e tshwereng a le mo ofising ya merero ya ga tautona gape le mo parlamente ko Gaborone Bonington North mototegi maipelo mo Phuting. Ke supe gore hano dithakadu re na le mo parlamente wa kgaolo e leng Honorable Phenyo Mokete Segokgo. Gongwe gape ke tse sebaka se ke itsise mo parlamente wa pele Kenneth Segokgo le ene o teng hano ba gaetsho re na le kgosikgolo wa morafe wa Batlokwa gape leng modulasetilo wa ntlo ya dikgosi Kgosipuso Gaborone. Mongame kgosi ga nosi o na le mohumagadi ke ta kopa gore gongwe le ene le mmone. Gongwe ka se sebaka gape ke itsise mothusa Kgosi Michael ba Thalefeng Gaborone. Motsamaisa tiro ke ta kopa o mphe sebaka ha ka gore ba ke ba itsiseng ba bašwa gongwe morage ga o ba itse e leng ma-councilora a rona mo kgaolong ya Tlokweng. Ke semolehela ka go itsisiwa Selokwana Honorable Untiretse Trifina Bogatsu ko khaekgolo le ba Magwadi ko Ramfura re na le Honorable Sheila Mathamwalus ko Lenganeng Honorable Mathama Tlotse ko Masetheng re na le Honorable Kabetse Kagiso Lopa mo Lesunyana re na le Honorable Ntwaitsile Tiro mo mafita khosi ha re leng teng ha re na le Honorable Kobamelo Naledi Maotwano, re na le o ithopetsweng ke Honorable Joseph Makufi, re na gape lo ithopetsweng ke Honorable Kidibonye Gloria Batlang. Ne ke re gape gongwe ke tse se sebaka ke itsisi gape ha ele gore amongst us we have His Excellency the Ambassador of the United States of America, Mr. Howard Van Franken. Ke itsisi gape gore we also have our Permanent Secretary to the President, me pelo e tetse. Re na le gape the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of State President, me go itse ma Morekisi. The Acting Attorney General, me Kushaid Khan. Be gape in the interest of time ke kope ba tshwere maemo a bo PS go ba emehela le bone le ba lemoge morahi o hano. Me ke tswelela ke supe gape gore we also have the United Nations Country Resident Coordinator, Mr. Zia Chowdhury. The UNAIDS Country Director, Mr. Alanka Malvia. The WHO Country Rep, Dr. Juliet Bataringaya. Also, in the interest of saving time, may I also request other heads of international organizations to rise so that the community may appreciate their presence. All heads of international organizations here present. The coordinator ene wa napa ba re tshwaretseng tiro e re untiretse lethare mme ke ta kopa re bana ba go bothe ba emele bone le ba bone beng ba me bothela bodiredi ba napa ke sa le ba le mothusi wa gagwe re la ga jang re na hano le the Deputy Commissioner of Police ke Re Solomon Mantswe. Re na gape le the Senior Assistant Commissioner of Prisons ke Dr. Tale. Gongwe nka sala ke kgwatha ha nka se ke itsisi ba our umbrella VDC chairperson Medinte Peche le maloko a gagwe ba ile gore ba tshwere motso wa tlokwe le bone ba re thusa. Ke kope bo mme Matshego gore le lona le me morafo le bone bo mme Matshego. The champions in our fight against HIV, the champions morahi o le bone we tsore le teng hano. Me ka go rialo ne ke re batsadi re na le bodiredi bo mo kgaolong ka se pitehela ke super re na le modula stilo Wallen board re Elijah Katse. The Council Secretary, Rekhabanyana. Hankasi ke ba wina ba tompola bo re ba re tshwere tiro bothe. Tota ne ke re ke eme ho ke re ke lebogile ka pula. Pula.
Ra leboga molaodi. Ka kitiso ya baeng ba re nang le bone mo letsatsing la gompieno. Your Honor, the Vice President, this year as the village and the community of Batlokwa, we have been so blessed. It's just a couple of months ago when we were at the Batlokwa Kota Reliko, the National Candlelight Memorial. Rentse re gopola bao ba ba re latlhegetseng e le ka sone lebaka lena la HIV and AIDS. Mragamo kgwedi latelang ra be re tsena mo the National Month of Prayer re ntse re le ko kgoteng kgolo ya Batlokwa me gompieno wa here at the climax re le mo World AIDS Day. So tota re a leboga gore re be re kgonne gore re tshegetse lefatshe la Botswana re le Batlokwa monongwaga bo mme Matshego ke kopa mogolo kwane yo. ka one mafoko ao ke ne ke ikoba ka one mafoko ao ke ne ke ikoba ke laletsa mongame kgosi kgolo ya batlokwa ibile ilene modula stilo wa ntlo ya dikgosi kgosi puso gaborone a re emeng re mo shape ka mogolokwane re mo amogeleng jaaka ke molaletsa mo podiamong ya rona gompieno.
Ke a leboga betso re ka kokobela ra tsa manno a rona. Sa ntlha betso nte ke le leboge ba tsamaisa tiro ya moso wa gompieno mme ke dire se se tshwanetseng sa go dumedisa baeng ba rona ke simololle pele ka go lemoga motlotlegi mothusa tautona wa lehatshe la Botswana Honorable NDABA Gaolathe mme re ga ke tswa foo ke lemoge matona a puso ba le re tsileng mo mosong wa gompieno mo motseng wa rona wa Tlokweng ke simololle ka go lemoga Honorable Dr. Stephen Modise e le tona a botsogo ke lemoge tona wa tsa merero ya banana le bong Honorable Lesego Chombo ke lemoge ene yo tiro e leng ka ga tlase ga gagwe the host minister ke lemoge Honorable Maipelo Mophuting mme re ga ke tswa foo ke lemoge mo parlamente wa kgaolo e tona e go di hitisa tsotlhe mo lehatsheng la Botswana Honorable Phenyo Mokete Segogo mme ga ke tswa mo ke lemoge mohumagadi wa batlokwa mohumagadi Thandiwe Gaborone ke lemoge mothusa kgosikgolo le marara otlhe a motso wa Tlokweng honorable councillors ba le lemfano your excellencies members of the diplomatic corps and heads of international organizations the permanent secretary to the president me ema pelo e tletse mokwaledi mo ofising ya ga tautona me go itsima morekisi senior government officials, coordinator wa NAPA, heads of parastatals, ke lemoge civil society organizations, ke NAs, umbrella VDC chair, baruti ba me bo mme matshego bobega dikgang le lona morafe ka kakaretso ke a le dumedisa mo mosong ono ka pula. Ke a le dumedisa mo mosong ono ka pula. Ba gaetsho ke boitumelo bo botona mo go nna gore mo mosong ono ke bo ke le amogela mo motseng wa rona wa Tlokweng the smart model village mo segopotsong se sa mafatshefatshe sa AIDS this year's World AIDS Day commemoration ki supe gore re le motse wa Tlokweng re motlotlo go bone ra tlhophiwa go tshegetsa segopotso se mme bile re lebogela go ne ga tsewa tshwetso ya gore nne rona mo ngwageng o motse o tshegetsang segopotso se mentetlelle gore pele ga ke tsena mo kamogelong ya me ka botlalo ke kope motlotlegi mothusa tautona gore a mphitsetse molaetsao go motlotlegi tautona advocate Duma Gideon Boko gore re le bogogi le tšhaba ya Tlokweng ra mo akgola ebile ra mo lebogisa go bo a tsene mo setulong sa boeteledipele jo bo go godimo sa lefatshe la Botswana. So we congratulate Mr. President go bo a tsene mo setulong seo mme re be re go a kgole le wena motlotlegi mothusa tautona go boana go dira mothusa tautona mo lehatsheng la Botswana mme ke dumela gore mmogo le tshwaragane le tla thusa mo go ageng Botswana yo mošwa. Rona mo motseng wa Tlokweng ke dumela ke re ka itumela ra ba ra ipela ka tsela e faphegileng ka gore tautona o na diragatsa tshwanelo ya gagwe ya go tlhopha mo motseng ono wa Tlokweng mo go kgotleng ya Masetleng selo se ke ditso ga tautona ikanisiwa o na bua gore ke nopola mafoko a gore it takes a village to raise a child and it takes many villages to raise a child mme re dumela re rona mo Tlokweng re le sego ka go bo tautona a ntse a nna mo motseng wa Tlokweng. So my boy has been staying in this village wa Tlokweng mme re le boeteledipele ke dumela ke re ra itumela ebile se re seeletsang motlotlegi mothusa tautona ke go bona re tshwaragane le puso e ntšha ye mo go ageng le go bopa le go isa lehatshe la rona la Botswana ko pele mme ke supe gore ke itumedisiwa ke go bo puso e bone go le botlhokwa gore e re leba ka ha mererong ya dikgaolo local government